justice, temperance, wisdom, courage. Applying ancient philosophy to modern times, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic. My name is Steve. I've been studying this philosophy for about a year. That means I am not an expert, but I am a student, and I'm sharing with you what I'm learning as I learn it and as I put things together and synthesize things in my own mind. As this first year of my studies comes to a close, I'm thinking about what to do in the next year, how to grow as a student of Stoicism. And one thing that I would really like to do is to focus on the works of Epictetus, as he is the only surviving teacher of Stoicism. His works are the only surviving works that we have from a teacher. So I'd like to focus on his works. And what I've been doing this year is I've been reading through all of Seneca's moral letters to Lucilius and taking notes on them. So I have about 60 pages of notes as I try to put things in my own words, or just take the bits that I found the most useful and write them down and make some comments on them or reword them. And I want to do the same with Epictetus, but I also want to focus to be sure that I'm not just learning for the sake of learning, but also applying. So I'm going to focus on his three disciplines, Epictetus's three disciplines, which are desire, action, and assent. And I'm going to focus mostly on the first one, the discipline of desire, in the next year. And that's what that may not be what I talk about on every episode, but that's what I myself am going to focus on. I'm trying to come up with a plan of self-improvement here. And I don't think it would be wise to try to tackle all three at once, but to focus narrowly. Seneca recommends this as well. Focus not on just becoming a master Stoic, but mastering a very small piece of Stoicism and build yourself up. Seneca often refers to learning to be a wise person as climbing a mountain, and it's easy to slip and slide and stumble as we're making our way up. But the important thing is that we make progress. And remember, when we don't make progress, when we slip, don't beat yourself up, because beating yourself up will just cause you to slide further downhill. Hopefully, as you work your way through this, you'll find that you are a little bit higher up the mountain than you were when you started. You might notice that the peak of the hill where the sage resides, the perfect Stoic, is through the clouds and seems out of reach. But the important thing is that we are higher up the mountain than when we started. So I'm going to work on desire and also study action and assent. And these relate to the three Stoic topoi, which basically means like the topics or the three major branches of Stoicism. And we tend to focus on one, ethics. That's how to act, how to behave. But there are two others, and those include physics, which is not the same as modern physics, but that's the translation of what they call it, physics, and logic. And the Stoics thought all three of those were important, and they were indispensable. You couldn't have one without the other. We study the world around us to understand what it is we should want, and we need logic to help us to do that and to convey that information. And then ethics arises from that. It's what grows from this garden of physics and logic, how to behave in order to live a good life. And that's what virtue is. You can think of virtue as just being a good person. And so we're going to talk more about that as these episodes progress, but we're going to start then with those three big branches of Stoicism: physics, ethics, and logic, and that's what I want to discuss today. Moral Letters to Lucilius by Seneca, number 89, on the parts of philosophy. It is a useful fact that you wish to know one which is essential to him who hastens after wisdom, namely, the parts of philosophy, and the division of its huge bulk into separate members. For by studying the parts we can be brought more easily to understand the whole. I only wish that philosophy might come before our eyes in all her unity, just as the whole expanse of the firmament is spread out before us to gaze upon. It would be a sight closely resembling that of the firmament, for then surely philosophy would ravish all mortals with love for her. We should abandon all those things which in our ignorance of what is great we believe to be great. Insomuch, however, this cannot fall to our lot. We must view philosophy just as men gaze upon the secrets of the firmament. So Seneca tells us that philosophy is a big, complex system, and it's hard to understand it all at once. So we should learn it in pieces, but not without forgetting the whole. To see philosophy all at once would be a wondrous thing, like looking up at the night sky. But unfortunately, we can't do that, so we have to study it in pieces, just like when we try to figure out the secrets of the firmament, the secrets of nature. We do little individual experiments to figure out one piece at a time. In the same way, we learn about philosophy, one piece at a time. Later on in this letter, Seneca breaks philosophy down into its major parts. I'm not going to read that to you, but I will give you my summary of what Seneca says. He says that philosophy is divided into 3 parts. 1, moral philosophy. 2, natural philosophy. And 3, rational philosophy. Moral philosophy keeps the soul in order. Natural philosophy investigates the universe, and rational philosophy keeps falsehood from creeping in and displacing truth. You can see this depicted in what we call the Stoic Egg. You can see this, for example, on Massimo Pigliucci's website, How to Be Stoic. I'll put a link in the show notes. Each of these 3 parts is vitally important. We tend to focus on the ethics, the part that tells us how to live each day, but the Stoics would have said all 3 parts were equally important, at least originally. By the time the Roman Stoics came along, they focused mostly on the ethics. But Stoicism is a life philosophy, and it encompasses not just what's right and wrong or how to live a good life, but also how does the world work and what is reality, right? All these things kind of interrelate. It's a full life philosophy, a way to live and understand the world. So the first part of philosophy is moral philosophy, also known as ethics. And Seneca says this is divided up into 3 components. 1, the speculative part, which weighs the worth of each thing according to its utility. 2, impulse. After weighing the worth of something, you then create an ordered impulse. And 3, actions. You make your impulse and your actions harmonize so that all 3 are in harmony. So the 3 parts here, the speculative, you can read about Epictetus talking about this as well in the discourses. This is where we weigh things out. Is this thing that is happening or this opportunity we have? Is it worth pursuing? Is it not worth pursuing? Is that noise I hear an intruder, or is it a mouse? So we weigh things out according to their value, and then an impulse arises in our mind based on that initial speculation, and then we take an action in response to this. We act, and the goal of Stoicism is to have all 3 of those levels in harmony with one another, because if your sensory input and your impulses and things are different than your actions, so you think something is important but you're not acting on it, for example, then you're going to not be living a virtuous or a happy life. This is why I think in some of the Stoic training courses that are offered online, one of the first steps in the courses is for you to sit down and think about what's important to you in life. Don't worry about what the Stoics said. What do you think is important for a good person? How would a good person live a good life? And then you think, how am I living up to this? So I have a value. Am I actually doing things in line with what I think is good? Okay, so then we move on to the next part, physics, or as Seneca calls it, the natural part of philosophy, natural philosophy. And he says this is divided up into 2 components. the bodily, which includes creative and created things. Created things he lists as elements and matter, and cause as another item. So the things that cause he lists as the things which moves all things and the elements. So I guess cause and effect, essentially. And then the non-bodily version of this, I guess, would be metaphysics, sort of the big questions of why and how. And I don't have a deep knowledge of metaphysics, but that would be the other side of the part we call physics. I, as a scientist, sort of supplement my knowledge of science for this component of Stoicism and kind of replace their view of how the universe worked, for example, with what we know now. Then the third part is rational or logic. And he says this includes rhetoric, which is continuous speech. So I would include writing in that as well as speech giving, and dialectic, which is speech between a question or an answer, so more of a conversation rather than a one-sided speech. Dialectic. And he says in order for us to be good at these sorts of things, we have to know words and the meanings of words. So logic is there to help us know what truth is and to prevent falsehood from sneaking in and replacing truth in our minds. So if you look at an image of this Stoic egg, as I said, the shell is logic. It's sort of the fortification that protects everything within. We have logic to keep falsehood from sneaking in. And then the white of the egg is ethics. There we go. Couldn't think of the word. Is ethics. So the white of the egg is ethics, how to live a good life. And the yolk of the egg is physics. So we study physics, we study the world in order to understand how it works, our place in it, and that then helps us to understand what is ethical. We live according to nature, right? So we study nature in order to understand what is okay to want, what is not okay to want, what things are in my power, what is not within my power. And then we use logic to prevent falsehoods from sneaking in, to disrupt our ethics or our physics, to prevent us from false understanding. So that is my amateurish rundown of the components of Stoicism. So that's the three major branches of Stoicism. And next week when we talk about Epictetus and his three disciplines, we can also tie those in to those original, that triumvirate, if you will, of Stoicism: logic, physics, and ethics. They sort of stem from those. So, I hope that wasn't too overwhelming. Please feel free to read about this stuff. There's a link on the show notes to the Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and there's a great summary of this stuff in there. You're going to learn a lot more by reading and following up on stuff like this rather than just taking my word for it. Once again, I am not an expert. But have a great week, and carpe diem.
My time is my time, and my mind